Hey, so welcome back to med school recap, I guess is what I'm going to call it. So I didn't post for the past few weeks, got a little behind, but I think this is a good way to kind of sum up those past few weeks. So over the past 2 weeks, I've had a quiz for each class. I scored above average in histology and early human development. I scored slightly above average in biochemistry, and I scored below average in anatomy. So anatomy is definitely my weakest subject right now, without a doubt. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do to fix that quite yet. I have a couple ideas that I'm going to try out before midterms come up. In response to last time I posted, uh, the weeks that presided that, so it was pretty much just studying, and that was really it. Studying and work. Nothing really all that interesting has happened over those few weeks. Leading up to this one, however, this puts me in a good spot because next week is our official study week, or what I'm going to call it Hell Week, where I'm going to be spending a lot of time every day studying. Because the week presiding Monday of October 12th is going to be our midterm week. And our midterms, very important, needless to say. And I cannot afford to score anything except above average. And when I refer to average, I'm not talking about average as in like the average person would make or something. I'm referring more to the class average. For those of you who don't know how med school works, is at the end of the term, based on the class average, they determine a curve. So let's say the class average is 70, right? They'll curve it up to 80. So anyone who has a 70 will get an 80. Anyone who has an 80 will get a 90. Anyone who has a 90 will get a 100, so on and so forth. Now, with that being said, no one goes above 100 and no one goes below a zero, right? But you have to be above the curve in order to benefit from it. Because in medical school, while C's are a grade you can get, anything below a C is considered failing, and they won't let you go on. So it is very important that I make sure I understand anatomy, not just anatomy, biochemistry, early human development, and histology. But it's really important I do well in these midterms. That way I can really distinguish myself early, and I don't have to worry about uh, relying on a curve ultimately, right? So that's my goal, is not to have to rely on the curve. With that being said, I've been making some new friends, I would say. People who might be with me for the rest of my life. It's interesting to think about this. We always like to think about when we're younger how in high school, oh, these are going to be some of your best friends that you'll ever make. And then you go off to college and people say, "Oh, well, college you'll meet the people that you'll know for a long period of time." But in this sense, this might actually be the group of people I know for the longest. Now, granted, that might change when I hit residency, but as it stands right now, with everyone having different interests in different fields, if I were to go on to do what I want to do, which is neurosurgery, then there's a chance that the people who are interested in like pediatrics or oncology or gastroenterology or gynecology or whatnot, so I'd have connections throughout the field that I could make and say, "Hey, I got a question for you in regards to this particular area of medicine," right? And I'd be able to have someone answer me. And I think that's going to build. It's building those long-term relationships that I think a lot of people think you're going to make going through school. I think those are the ones that I'm going to be making now, where I'm going to have to rely on them in the future, and I'm relying on them now, and they're relying on me. Uh, that was another thing. So the group of people that I'm referring to, we've also made study groups, of course, because med school's hard, and we've been striving to keep everyone on their A game, trying our best to make sure everyone's doing well. Some people are doing better, some people are doing worse. It's everyone's got their strengths and weaknesses, and ultimately, at the end of the day, we have to just try our best. And if we don't do well, we don't do well. We can't dwell on it. We got to move on and keep going. Something that's a little difficult. It really is, but I understand. why it's set up that way. Because if you get stuck on the little things, or if you get caught up in what happened yesterday, you'll never be able to be a good physician, right? Because what happens today is all that matters today, right? What happened yesterday mattered yesterday, right? It may have consequences in the future, but it's what's happened. What's done is done. You can't change it. So there's no point getting upset or doing anything of the sort. You just got to keep trying and work a little bit harder and fix where you think your flaws are at. Um, as far as interesting things go, with the lovely virus we have going on right now, that's really hindering a lot of what we can do. Online medical school is not ideal in any sense of the imagination. And I think that might be partially why I'm struggling with anatomy as a hands-on learner. I very much prefer being able to have my hands on in something and not being able to do the cadaver labs and not being able to actually hold and feel and look at all these individual notches, formina, cranial nerves, all these different things. Not being able to see, feel them, or look at them in a physical setting, I think is hindering me in some way. Um, Other than that, nothing really interesting is all that interesting's happened. I did an autopsy the other day. I can't tell you much about it because of HIPAA laws and whatnot. Uh, but yeah, that was interesting. It's a little surreal. For those of you wondering, doing an autopsy, seeing a dead body on a table, it bothers you a little bit, but you don't really think about it that way, if that makes sense. It's really hard to explain. It's almost a surreal feeling that you don't actually think there is a dead human being laying in front of you. And perform an autopsy is a little bit more weird. It gets into almost a little bit of more morbidity, where we're not sad. We're sad for the individual, but it's not like it's bothering us. It's weird. It's unique. It's something that it really opens your eyes. And I think this is a good way to actually see potentially something we'll be dealing with in the future, right? Obviously, we're going to have patients that die. There's no doubt about that. And being able to see kind of what the aftermath is, it's very it's very eye-opening. And it also helps, again, I can't say too much about the case due to HIPAA laws and whatnot, but it also makes you double check on things that you may have missed or check on something that you might not think of checking just because you don't see it the first time. It doesn't mean it might not be there, right? And of course, doctors, we're human, we make mistakes, and we only have so many tests, and if the tests all come back negative, then we can't really do much about it, right? But there's always that, let me run that test one more time, see what happens, sort of thing. And it really showed me that you can be sure, but you might want to make sure. And I wish I could delve a little bit more into it, but I really can't due to some of the due to the potential of this particular case going to a court setting. I can't say much about it. Um, Other than that, nothing of all that much interest has happened. I'm going to be starting Hell Week on the 12th of October. In preparation for midterms, and I'm going to do midterms, and then yeah, I'll give you an update after midterms, and we'll see how that goes. Hopefully, I'm still jolly as ever and doing somewhat better in my classes. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to say the least. I'm excited. This is definitely the hardest thing I've ever done. But then again, if it was easy, everyone would do it, right? I mean, that's how the old saying goes. And a lot of people want to be doctors, but no one really ever gets quite this far. So I'm excited. I look forward to what the future holds and all the stress that comes with it. Whether or not I like it is debatable, but it's something I'm looking forward to, and it's starting to turn up the interest meter for me because a lot of the things that I thought were arbitrary before are becoming more into the alleyway of what I'm thinking of doing. The anatomy stuff, we're going into things that cover surgical basis. Our questions are becoming clinical based when we're talking about patients and how our material applies to the clinical settings. It's nice. It's definitely what I want to do, and I just got to put forth more effort. I got to keep pushing myself to go through those grueling sessions and just listening, paying attention, making sure I'm getting every detail. Even if the details might be minute or might be irrelevant, I need to make sure I'm understanding everything. And I think that's kind of where my bane was this past go around with quizzes. I understood it, but I didn't know it all. And it bit me in the butt pretty hard. And it's very disheartening for me to score as low as I did, even though, like I was saying, I was making above average in some cases by 10-point margins. It's still not good enough for me. It's very disheartening and concerning for me to be scoring that low. Now, granted, med school has a lot of information, but no excuse on that. So I look forward to updating y'all next week when I finish up Hell Week, or as I'm transitioning through Hell Week rather, and I'll give you some more updates on that. I have some ideas where what I want to start doing with this whole video series, and hopefully it works out. So thank you all for listening. Thank you for continuing to show interest in my journey, and I'll see y'all next time. Have a good one.